Hi, I'm Abhishek and I'm the founder of Rara, an app that lets you easily build, play, and share games entirely through your phone. Today we're going to look at creating a game mechanic from scratch and get introduced to the fundamentals, the foundations of the rule system that you can use to build out your own game mechanics and then your own games. So, what we have right here in this simple scene is I have this, well, to set up the story, we have this little enemy in the center, the one that's rotating, and he has a bunch of minions around him. And what I want to happen is that when I destroy this enemy, the minions around them also get destroyed and then instead get replaced with some coins. So it's like treasure that I earn for destroying the boss. So let's just see what happens right now. So I'm going to play. I'm going to shoot this guy down. You see that nothing happens, but I want all these little minions to convert into coins instead. So I can do that by creating a simple rule on these minions or these plant looking things. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to long press on them, hit this plus button, and then go in to adding a custom rule. Now the first thing you should do is always kind of like name your rule, right? So that it's easy for you to refer to it and find it later on. So I'm just going to say replace. Probably not the best name, but just enough for me to remember that this rule means the enemy is going to, or the plant is going to get replaced with a coin. So what I want to do is you have two sections over here. You have your whens, which are your conditions, and your do's, which are your actions, right? So I'm going to say when do I want this to happen? When something happens, I want something else to happen in the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add a condition, and let's just say I want all these. What I want to check is this rotating enemy destroyed. So way to do that is I can actually go into the game token, and these all are little tokens that you can link together to create your own custom logic. So I'm going to say game instance count entity. I'm going to say of this rotating golem entity. If that count is equal to 0, which means there's none of these golems left in the world, then I want to do something. So what I'm going to do is first I am going to get the current position of the current instance. So now remember, I'm adding this rule onto these plant NPCs. So current instance refers to each of those instances. So I'm going to first get its position, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to spawn a coin at the position that I just got. So the concept to remember is that each of these lines, they return a value, and that value gets automatically stored in a variable so you can use it later on. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to say game spawn, and then you'll see over here this automatically generated a value which is result of 1, which is essentially the position of the current instance. Now spawn as a token takes two inputs. It takes a vector, which is a position in 3D space, and it also requires the entity that needs to be spawned. So I'm going to first say game spawn result of 1, which means spawn it at the current position. And what do I want it to spawn? I want it to just spawn a coin, right? And then what I also want to do is I want to make sure that those plant NPCs get destroyed. So I'm just going to add a final line which says game destroy current instance. So a very simple a rule which essentially says that if there are no golems left in the world, then spawn something at the current position of each of these flower plant NPCs. Now to test it, I can go back into play. You can see I can quickly switch back and forth between editing a rule and testing it to iteratively and interactively build out my game. So I'm going to just shoot this guy down. You see instantly they all got swapped out with coins. That's how you can create a simple rule. Now let's say I want to add further to this rule. Maybe I want this rule to trigger not only when the enemy has been killed, the golem has been killed, but also when some other condition is met. So we can easily create compound conditions. So let's say I want it to also happen when the game score is at least greater than 30. So let's just add another line to the condition, and I'm going to say game score greater than, I can enter any value here, right? So I can enter the value 30. Now, one thing to remember in these conditions is that only the last line gets evaluated. But what I want to happen is I want this to happen when both these lines are true, right? But right now, only it will only check this line. So a very easy way to do check both of them is I can add another line to my conditions, and now both of these can be checked by, you'll see these two things: result of one, result of two. Result of 1 is the result of this first line, result of 2 is the result of this second line. So now I can simply do result of 1 and result of 2, which means that this condition will trigger only when both these are true. And now, since there's no easy way for me to increase the score right now, I'm just going to go back into object mode, and I'm going to place a few coins in the world that I can collect to ensure my score is greater than 30. I'm just going to increase the score number on them. Maybe just each of them gives me 31 points. And now you see I'm going to shoot, nothing happens. But as soon as I collect one coin, now both the conditions are true and all the plant NPCs get replaced with coins. Can go back to this rule. Now, one more concept to keep in mind is that over here, you see I've hard coded this number 30, right? Which is the score that I want to check for. So instead of hard coding numbers, you can instead use parameters. So this little icon on the top left allows you to create parameters which make adjusting these values much easier. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a float parameter, and I'm going to say score value. Again, just make sure you name it something that is easy to remember and apt to whatever you're doing. And I'm going to say, okay, this score, the range for this should be 0 to 100. And then I'm going to replace this 30 with, instead, you'll see now it shows up over here. It says, hey, what do you want to compare this to? And since I want to get the value and compare it to whatever value is of that score parameter, score value parameter, I'm just going to simply tap on this and say get score value. Now, when I minimize this, you'll see that this nice little slider got added in over here, which allows me to modify this on the fly, right? Very easily. So now I can go and set it to, say, 30, which was what, somewhere around 30, which is what I wanted. I can also just tap on this value to enter a value easily. And now in this case, I'm going to shoot this guy down, go, and it changes to a coin. Now I can quickly go back and actually set it instead to a different value. Now in this case, I'll have to collect 2 coins or 3 before all of them change. So very easy to use these parameters to allow you to quickly change values within your rule and interactively build out your game in real time. And now, just to add a little bit more, just out of fun, let's just say that I want these little plant NPCs to be constantly staring me down while I'm moving around in the world. So I can easily do that by adding another custom rule onto them. So I can go in over here, choose another custom rule, name this to look at. And now in this case, what I'm going to do is I want this to happen all the time. So I'm actually not going to add any condition. I will simply add actions. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to try to get the position of the player. And the way I can do that is, first I will going to have to get the player itself. So I'm going to go to game, get instance, entity, and choose the player. Now this again will get stored in a variable called result of 1. So I can now going to add another action. You'll see result of 1 appears here. I can say result of 1, and now I can get the position of the player. Now this will get stored in result of 2. And now finally what I can do is I can say that current instance, and since I'm adding this rule onto the plant NPCs, current instance refers to the plants. I can say current instance physics look at, and now you'll see I can use result of 2 over here. Now to test it, I can go into play mode, and you'll see all of them are staring me down as I try to kill their leader. And that's how you can start building whatever game mechanics you want. And these foundations and these fundamentals should help you get started. To get access to the app, there are links in the description, and remember to subscribe.